Number 2 is a movie that I've already made a video on, and so you might think it's not fair for me to include it onto this list, but you know what? I think it's appropriate for me to just kind of repeat what I said about this movie on this list. Number 2 is Barbie. Now, unlike the other movies that are on this list, I actually have a lot of good things to say about this movie. There are a lot of positive aspects towards this movie. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling are both fantastic as Barbie and Ken respectively. I love the set design of Barbie Land. I love the way that everything looks visually. Some of the songs from the movie's soundtrack I think are really good, with the clear standout being What Was I Made For from Billie Eilish, which is just an absolutely beautiful song. The ending of the movie where Barbie is in this void or whatever with her creator as she learns about what it means to be a woman or whatever it was, I don't remember. But it's like a genuinely beautiful scene as well. Like, it almost moved me. When I rewatched this movie, I was like, oh damn, this is actually like kind of emotional. What the I didn't like this movie anywhere near as much upon rewatch, and then I'm at the end, it's like, holy shit. The movie does a complete 180 and now it's like an amazing movie. And I guess, yeah, if I want to get technical, this movie helped keep theaters alive during the 2023 Hollywood strikes alongside Oppenheimer, which came out the same day. Now, crazy story, I was originally going to have this be a tie between Barbie and Oppenheimer, but ultimately I decided to leave Oppenheimer out of this. I have a core reason for not liking either of these movies all that much as I should. But for the case of Barbie, I have other problems with it in regards to the movie itself. And then Oppenheimer, as far as I'm concerned, is objectively speaking a perfect movie. I cannot think of anything to really criticize Oppenheimer for besides this stupid thing that I don't even know if I want to go into detail about it in this video. For the sake of this video, I am only focusing on Barbie, the movie that I think does have flaws. Sometimes I feel like I can be a bit harsh towards this movie. I rewatched this movie back in November of 2023, and then I made an entire video on it going over my problems with it. The thing was though, I don't even hate this movie all that much, but I just think it's really weak in comparison to like what a lot of people say about it. I know that there are a lot of people out there that felt empowered and motivated, like a lot of women especially. They're gonna hold this movie up to a high regard and they're gonna look at it as a masterpiece and whatnot, and you know, it's like, I'm happy for them. I'm glad that this movie is like important to them. I'm glad that it resonates with them. I'm not trying to guilt trip any woman or just anyone in general regardless of gender. I'm not trying to guilt trip them for liking this movie. I'm not trying to convince them that no, this movie is bad, you're wrong. I don't hate this movie for anti-woke reasons. Right off the bat, I'm getting that out of the way. I don't support or watch Ben Shapiro or The Critical Drinker or The Quartering or any of these other people. I don't watch them at all. I hate talking about this movie because every time I talk about it, I have to make that explicitly clear. But getting back on topic, I know that there are a lot of like women that they'll look at this movie as like an important movie for them. You know, it resonates with them, and you know, I'm happy for them. I'm not even gonna lie, I wish I was a woman myself, so that way it's like this movie could resonate with me and I'd be able to look past like some of the problems that I have with it, because I know this could very easily go the wrong way. People could very easily get the wrong idea. I'm a guy criticizing a movie like Barbie. I know. I promise you it's not going to turn out that way. So the first problem that I have with this movie is, much like with Beetlejuice, I just don't find this movie all that funny. Now, unlike every other movie that's on this list, when I watched this movie for the first time in theaters on that titular day, July 21st, 2023, I absolutely love this movie, and I thought this movie was amazing, this movie was a masterpiece, stuff like that. In a better timeline, I would still retain this opinion about this movie, but we don't live in that timeline. I rewatched the movie in November of 2024, and I'm not even gonna lie, I just didn't find it as funny as I used to find it. I felt that like a lot of the humor that's in this movie just comes off as very like forced and awkward, like it's trying too hard to be funny. The only instances where I think the movie really works are during like the few serious moments that it has. The scene where Barbie is at the bus stop with that old woman, the scene where she's in the void with her creator, as I mentioned before. It's like the few serious moments that are in the movie are when the movie is really able to shine, but there's only like 3 of them in the entire movie. And then the rest of the movie is just unfunny to me. I'm sorry. There's a scene where Barbie meets the CEO of Mattel, who's played by Will Ferrell, and just as they prepare to put her inside of the box or whatever and send her back to Barbie Land, she asks to meet the CEO of Mattel, and then Will Ferrell's like, "I'm the CEO of Mattel." And then Barbie notices that everyone that runs Mattel, everyone that runs the Barbie section or whatever of Mattel is a man. And then Will Ferrell goes on about how Mattel has had like a history with women, like a big important history with women. And it comes across as a perfect example of show, don't tell. It would be so much funnier to just have the audience notice the irony that like there's no woman that's in charge of Barbie and Mattel. It's all men. If you have to explain the joke, it's not funny. Bro, there's a specific joke in this movie that I remember being like really unfunny in retrospect. So there's like the scene where Barbie gets kicked out of her house by Ken, and then she's like sad and miserable and whatever, and then it cuts to like a fake joke commercial that's like existential crisis Barbie or whatever. I probably thought this was the funniest thing ever when I first watched it, and then I rewatched the movie and it's like, what in the what is this like nostalgia critic like skit doing in this movie, bro? This like Family Guy cutaway tier joke, man. This movie was nominated for Best Picture at the 2024 Oscars, by the way, over Across the Spider-Verse, no less, if you can believe it. You know, I'm advocating for comedies to make a comeback, and you know, this is the highest grossing comedy of all time, but like, when I say I want comedies to come back, I specifically want them to be funny as well. As much as I love comedies, I will acknowledge that there are more bad comedies than bad movies from any other genre. And bad comedies often end up being worse than bad movies from any other genre. A bad comedy is worse than a bad horror movie, a bad drama, etc. This obviously isn't anywhere near the worst comedy I've ever seen, but it's also not a very hilarious movie either. Listen, humor is subjective and all that, but still. I think I've delayed the inevitable long enough for this movie. Let's talk about the politics of this movie. Once again, I cannot clarify this enough. I am not anti-woke or anything like that. I do not think this is an anti-male movie or anything of that sort. If this was truly an anti-male movie, there wouldn't be a single male actor in this movie. Ryan Gosling, Will Ferrell, none of these actors would be in the movie if it was anti-male. There wouldn't be any male writers, male editors, nothing like that. Producers, there are men that are involved with this movie's production. Do you think any of them would want to participate in a movie that is supposedly anti-male? Honestly, be real with me. Now, I don't have a problem with the messages of the movie itself. I have a problem with the way that they're executed, and ultimately I think they could have been executed far better. So at the beginning of the movie, we're in Barbie Land, and we see the Barbies and the Kens, in which the Barbies are obviously in control. The Barbies do all of the important stuff while the Kens do nothing. And then Barbie and Ken enter the real world. Ken sees how much power men have in the real world, and so Ken leaves back to Barbie Land, and then later into the movie, when Barbie heads back to Barbie Land, she sees that now things are the other way around. The Kens are in control. The Kens do all of the important stuff, and the Barbies act as servants to the Kens. At the beginning, the movie never once implies that the Kens have any sort of issue with the way that they're treated compared to the Barbies. They don't have a problem at all with the fact that they are servants to the Barbies, essentially. And I think it would have been better if there were like subtle hints, subtle clues that like, yeah, the Kens don't like the way that they're being treated. They want to have the same equal equal respect that the Barbies give to themselves. And then fast forward later into the movie when the Kens take over, now it's the other way around. Now it becomes way too blatant, way too obvious, way too in your face. The ending of the movie also just kind of rubs me the wrong way. Now I know that earlier I praised the ending of the movie where Barbie and her creator are in the void and Barbie finds out her true purpose and whatever. Like, I praise that as being a beautiful moment, and you know, it is a beautiful moment, don't get me wrong. But then there's other aspects about the movie's ending that just kind of don't sit well with me, to say the least. After this scene, the movie ends with Barbie in the real world, and that's it. You don't see Barbie Land again. You see Barbie and her creator walk into the void, everyone in Barbie Land says goodbye, and that's it. That's the last you see of Barbie Land. And then the narrator at the end of the Barbie Land scene says something along the lines of like, one day the Kens will receive the same respect in Barbie Land that women will receive in the real world, or something like that. The Kens won't get any respect in Barbie Land until women get respect in the real world, or something along the lines. I don't remember how it goes exactly. Man, I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of a downer ending in a way when you think about it. You watch the movie, you see like the main conflict, and you think the movie's gonna end with like, you know, the Barbies and the Kens equal together. They have equal power together. And then the movie just doesn't show that at all. I guess it like vaguely implies it, but it doesn't show it at all. And I don't know, I just feel like that's kind of a downer ending, especially for a movie about Barbie of all things. I know someone in the comments is gonna defend this and be like, oh, but it's clever and subversive, and it's like, bro, it's a movie about a fucking doll. Be real with me, man. Do you realize how fucking stupid you sound, ironically, when you try to be all intellectual and whatever towards a movie based on a doll? Once again, and I cannot stress this enough, I'm not accusing this movie of being anti-male or anything like that, but I think it would have been better to have an ending showing like the Barbies and the Kens together, you know, showing how things are in Barbie Land, in this new and improved Barbie Land. Early in this video, I talked about how the ending half of Beetlejuice completely ruined any chances of me ever rewatching it. And it's kind of the same thing for Barbie. Granted, the circumstances are completely different, but it's the same principle where it's like, I don't really see much reason in rewatching this movie because I know how it ends, and I know that it doesn't have a very satisfying ending. I know that the movie tackles like men's mental health and stuff like that, you know. It's not an anti-male movie. It does acknowledge that like men should be respected as well, in addition to women. You know, you have the whole I am Kenuff stuff, you know, I'm just Ken, Ken is me, whatever. But I feel like it doesn't explore that enough, and I think it would be better if it explored it more. Yo, I'm being like 100% fucking serious with y'all when I say that, like, I swear to God, if this movie gives me gender dysphoria, if I develop gender dysphoria from a movie based on a doll made for little girls, Jesus, man, what a fucking timeline we live in. What a timeline. A movie based on a doll made for little girls has me potentially questioning, am I the right gender? Maybe I should have been a woman. Maybe that way I'll really understand this movie. Maybe I'd be able to appreciate it more. Maybe I would look at the movie's ending as a happy ending. I don't know. Oh yeah, one more thing before we move on. I was struggling very hard. I was suffering a low point in the summer of 2023 when this movie and Oppenheimer both came out, and now I cannot look at either of these movies, even if they're objectively good, or even if one of these movies is objectively good. It doesn't matter because I cannot look at either of these movies very positively. I was able to control this for most of 2024, but with how really things have been in 2025, I guess it's like caused me to kind of relapse, I'm not sure. And I look back on this time thinking like, you know, I could have done better. I could have prevented things from happening. I made this time for seemingly no reason. And now I have to be reminded of that low point every time I hear people talk about these movies. And believe me, I hear people talk about these movies a lot because these movies were absolutely massive. These movies will easily go down as two of the biggest movies of the 2020s, much to my dismay. I think now is the time to move on to number one, and let me just say, number one is going to be the complete opposite of Barbie in every single way, but it follows the exact same idea. It's a beloved, critically acclaimed movie that I don't like very much. Believe me when I say I have saved the most controversial for last. Let us proceed forward. I have broken a lot of rules throughout this list. First, I talked about Bruno. Then, I said Beetlejuice's name way more than 3 times. And now, for the number one movie on this list, for the number one movie that everyone loves except for me, I'm going to talk about Fight Club. Yes, that's right, Fight Club. Anyone that thought that I was a woman-hating incel or whatever just because I criticized Barbie, consider yourselves debunked, because I'm about to criticize every incel's favorite movie just like that. I watched this movie very recently in April for the very first time. I saw a lot of people say that this is one of the greatest movies of the 90s, if not of all time. When this movie first came out in 1999, it didn't do all that well, and as a matter of fact, it was considered a pretty controversial movie. But as time went on, the movie's reputation would improve while also getting worse at the same time. I'll explain what I mean by that. Generally though, the movie is considered a classic, so how come I don't like it very much? Well, allow me to explain. It's gonna be a bit of a long story. Now, before I go any further, I'm just gonna say that I will be including spoilers in this segment of the video. I will go into spoilers for this movie. I don't care if this is an old movie. I don't care if this movie is over 25 years old. I don't care if I don't like this movie. I could be very spiteful and spoil the movie without warning just because I don't like the movie, but I'm not doing that, okay? I'm not Satan. Even though I do not like this movie very much, I will acknowledge that this is not the kind of movie that you want to have spoiled. And so, anyone that has never seen this movie, but plans on watching it at some point, anyone that's never seen this movie, but they're interested in watching it at some point, click off this video, and pretend that the video ended with the Barbie segment. Anyone watching this video that has either already seen Fight Club, or they've never seen Fight Club, but they don't care about it at all, they just want to hear me talk about why I don't like this movie, let us proceed forward. But don't come complaining to me in the comments about how I spoiled the movie, because I did warn you all that there will be spoilers. Now, I love the world of cinema. I love movies. I am highly passionate about movies, or at least I used to be, until 47 completely destroyed any chances of me joining the film industry. But in recent times, even ignoring 47, I find it harder and harder to really care about movies. I find it harder and harder to really talk about movies. Sometimes there are movies that I personally don't like, or God forbid, they are objectively bad movies. And despite that fact, it is extremely hard for me to go into detail as to why I don't like the movie. It is extremely hard for me to go into detail as to why the objectively bad movie is objectively bad. Take, for example, the previous movie on this list, Barbie. I don't like Barbie all that much. I went into detail. I explained why I don't like Barbie all that much. But I don't feel comfortable going into detail as to why I don't like this movie, because there are tons and tons and tons of people that don't like the movie either, except they don't like the movie for misogynistic, anti-woke reasons. And my main fear when it comes to criticizing a movie like Barbie is that I either end up attracting people that assume that I'm like a bigot or whatever just because I criticize Barbie, or I end up attracting actual bigots, people that like they hate Barbie, but they hate it for misogynistic anti-woke reasons. All it does is make me want to stay completely silent towards this movie, but then that's impossible for me to do. It is impossible for me to ignore this movie. This is one of the biggest movies of the 2020s, the biggest movie of 2023. It is practically fucking inescapable. And then it's even worse when the movie in question is objectively bad. Now, I don't like Barbie at all, but I will not call it an objectively bad movie. It is far from that. This whole thing becomes much worse when the movie in question is objectively bad. Like, say for example, the recent Snow White remake. The Snow White remake is fucking terrible. Ain't nobody gonna try and defend this movie. Ain't nobody gonna try and say like, no, this movie is good. I have never seen anyone defend this movie. I've never seen anyone say it's not as bad as everyone makes it out to be. This is a movie that is practically unanimously hated by everyone, and yet it's also fucking impossible to criticize at the same time, if that makes sense. And once again, that's because of the large amount of people that hate the movie for the wrong reasons. I want to celebrate the fact that this movie did horrible at the box office because it is a genuinely bad movie. But I cannot do that because number one, well, this movie is inevitably going to undo the damage that the Snow White remake did. This thing is going to make $1 billion, and I've already accepted that. And number two, most of the people that hated on this movie are like anti-woke, misogynistic, racist people. And so it's hard for me to criticize this movie, despite the fact that it's objectively a terrible movie. It's hard for me to criticize it because then I end up running the risk of either attracting anti-woke misogynistic people, or I have people just think, oh, I don't like Snow White, that means I'm a racist bigot or whatever. And it's like, no, this movie is fucking terrible. There is no universe where Snow White 2025 is a good movie. And yet, it just so happens we live in the universe where it is much harder to criticize this movie than necessary. Now, you're probably wondering, what the hell does this have to do with Fight Club? More specifically, what the hell does this have to do with me not liking Fight Club? Good question. Well, you see, Fight Club suffers the same problem that the Snow White remake suffers from, except this time, it's for a movie that's objectively good. Objectively, this movie is a masterpiece. Objectively, this movie is a 10 out of 10. Objectively, this is one of the greatest movies of the 90s, and maybe one of the greatest movies of all time. And yet I don't feel comfortable calling it any of those things because there are a lot of people that love this movie for the wrong reasons. I really want to love this movie. I want to say that this movie is amazing, but I can't. Out of the 6 movies that are on this list, this is the best one easily. I would say objectively, this is the best movie on the list. And yet, as confusing as it may be, this is the best movie on the list, but it's also the one that I come the closest to hating. Not because of the movie itself, but because of the stuff surrounding it. I mentioned before at the beginning of this video that I don't hate any of the movies that are on this list. I just simply don't like them that much. Fight Club is the one movie on this list that I come the closest to hating. And again, it's not because of the movie itself, it's because of the stuff surrounding this movie. It's because of the people that love this movie for the wrong reasons. This is a movie that I want to say that I love, and yet I'm unable to say that I love it because people will potentially get the wrong idea about who I am as a person by just simply saying, yeah, this objectively great movie is a masterpiece. So the movie follows Edward Norton's character, who doesn't have a name at all. He is frequently referred to as the narrator, and so I will refer to him as that in all future instances of me referencing this this character. The narrator works a boring job at an office, living a boring life, suffering depression or at least something adjacent to it, I don't know, feeling like he doesn't have much purpose in his life. He frequently attends different group therapies just to feel something, just to have his situation improve. And then one night he meets Tyler Durden, a man who has a, let's say, very interesting viewpoint on society and what it takes to be a man and whatnot, the way that men have been in recent times, that sort of thing. And so the two of them start Fight Club. Throughout the movie, Fight Club garners more and more members. You have all of these men coming together to fight, not to win anything, not to get stronger, but just to feel something, just to have some kind of purpose in life. Now here is where the spoilers will come in. As it turns out, Tyler Durden doesn't exist. Everything that the narrator imagined Tyler Durden doing, he did it himself. It was the narrator, all on his own, that set up Fight Club. He was the sole person that came up with Project Mayhem, which is this, like, I don't know, terrorism, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. And so the last quarter of the movie focuses on the narrator trying to fight this demon that he created, Tyler Durden, while also attempting to stop Project Mayhem. Now, the plot twist, I think, is amazing. It's a really good, really well executed plot twist. It's no surprise that it has gone down as one of the most iconic plot twists in any movie ever. And again, it is not the kind of plot twist that you want to have spoiled, so I warned you 2 times, so don't get mad at me for saying that I spoiled the movie's plot or whatever. There are a lot of subtle clues, subtle hints throughout the movie that implicate that, yeah, Tyler Durden doesn't exist, it's just the narrator and that's it. So how come I don't like this movie all that much? What is preventing me from calling this movie a masterpiece? Well, you know how earlier, during the Beetlejuice review, I went on about how there were certain characters in movies and TV shows where it's like, you miss the point if you idolize them, you miss the point if you like these characters. Yeah, Tyler Durden is one of the most famous examples of these kinds of characters. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the recent epidemic of incel, alpha, sigma, manosphere people, you know, Andrew Tate and the people that look up to him, you know, that sort of thing. People that have these very, like, strange, questionable views on what it's like to be a man, how men should be stronger than women, etc. And Tyler Durden over here is kind of like the prototypical example of that kind of person. He was Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate. There are a lot of people that watch this movie and they finish watching it thinking, wow, Tyler Durden is such a cool guy, I want to be just like him, despite the fact that throughout the movie he is shown to be a horrible person. And now, to the movie's defense, the movie makes it clear that no, Tyler Durden is not a good character. Tyler Durden is not a good person. Tyler Durden is not someone to look up to. Or I guess the narrator, whatever, the either or. There are a ton of people that look up to this character, even though they're not supposed to. And that's when you realize Fight Club has almost the exact same problem that the Snow White remake has. The Snow White remake is objectively a terrible movie, and yet it's very hard to criticize it because there are a lot of people that hate the movie for the wrong reasons. Fight Club is objectively an amazing movie, and yet it is very hard to praise it because there are a lot of people that love the movie for the wrong reasons. Now, I have seen a few of these you miss the point if you idolize them movies, and generally, I am able to separate the movie from their fan base. I can still acknowledge The Wolf of Wall Street is a masterpiece, and then also ignore the people that think Leonardo DiCaprio's character is someone to look up to. I can watch American Psycho and acknowledge it as a masterpiece, while also ignoring the people that think Patrick Bateman is someone to look up to. I could watch Joker 2019 and acknowledge it as a masterpiece, while ignoring the people that think Arthur Fleck is someone to look up to. That sort of thing. For some reason, It is significantly harder for me to do that with Fight Club. It is much harder for me to separate this movie from its fan base. Now I have to make this obvious, not everyone that loves a Fight Club is like this. Not everyone that loves Fight Club is an alt-right manosphere Andrew Tate supporter or anything like that, but there are a lot of people that are in that sort of like group, and they think this movie is good for the wrong reasons. Not all Fight Club fans are incels, but all incels are Fight Club fans, if you get what I mean. I think what makes this movie different from all of these other movies is when I watched this movie for the first time. I watched Joker for the first time when it came out back in 2019. I would later go on to rewatch it a second time in October of 2024. October. That's a very important thing to note. It was before November of 2024. It was before shit hit the fan. I watched The Wolf of Wall Street for the first time near the end of 2023, around the 10-year anniversary of the movie, if I remember correctly. I watched American Psycho for the first time around either August or September of 2024, again, before hit the fan in November. Fight Club I would watch for the first time in April of 2025, after had hit the fan, and so it makes quite a difference, honestly. I'm not saying the incel Andrew Tate stuff didn't exist before 2025, because obviously it did, but I feel like it wasn't as bad as it is now. If I watched this movie before the incel Andrew Tate stuff became really widespread, or before it even existed, I would be a lot different towards this movie. I would be a lot more comfortable saying this movie is a masterpiece. But I watched it after it had gotten really fucking bad, and that negatively affects the way that I look at this movie. I don't want to call this movie a masterpiece because I don't want to run the risk of either attracting incels that think Tyler Durden is someone to look up to, or I end up attracting people that think I'm an incel that thinks Tyler Durden is someone to look up to just because I praise Fight Club. In general, I just don't see much of a reason to ever watch this movie a second time. Even looking past the incel fan base that this movie has, there's also the fact that, I'm just gonna say it, I hate Tyler Durden. I loathe this character, and I understand 100% that that's the point of the movie. The point of the movie is that Tyler Durden is an awful person. You're supposed to despise this guy. The fact that I hate Tyler Durden this much should show that I understood the assignment far better than most of the people that watched this movie. David Fincher should consider me teacher's pet just for that alone. I don't want to criticize this movie for being mean-spirited because I understand that's the point. The movie is supposed to be mean-spirited. This isn't supposed to be a happy-go-lucky, sunshine and rainbows, My Little Pony kind of movie. This is a dark, bleak movie. I get that, but I don't see any reason to ever watch this movie a second time. For being one of the most critically acclaimed movies ever made, for being considered an essential film bro cinephile movie, there is no rewatch value for this movie at all. I see no reason to ever be like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna watch Fight Club again. Why the hell not? I see no reason to do that at all. The extremely unlikable nature of Tyler Durden's character, combined with the fact that there are tons of people that think Tyler Durden is the good guy in this story, completely affects any chances of me ever watching this movie a second time. Once again, I understand that's the point, and the movie does criticize this fact. The movie makes it obvious that Tyler Durden is not someone to look up to, but that doesn't make it any less uncomfortable to watch. It's the exact same thing as with Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice makes it obvious that him trying to marry a child is a bad thing, but that doesn't make it any less uncomfortable to sit through. Fight Club makes it obvious that Tyler Durden is a horrible person that should not be looked up to. The movie condemns, not condones anything that this character does in the movie, and yet that doesn't make it any less uncomfortable to sit through. And the massive fan base this movie has of people that miss the point of the movie do not help matters out at all. I get the point. But does it really matter that I get the point when there are tons of people that have watched this movie that they miss the point completely, and these people that miss the point could end up being potentially dangerous to the real world? Does it really matter then that I specifically get the point? What should easily be a 10 out of 10 movie for me is instead like a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10, I don't know. I think it's much easier for me to say I don't like Fight Club, or even I hate Fight Club, than it is for me to say I love Fight Club, but I don't look up to Tyler Durden, and I don't think Project Mayhem is a good thing. It saves me a lot of time and a lot of stress, even if I end up running the risk of coming off as a contrarian. You know what? So be it. If it helps ease the backlash, on the same night that I watched Fight Club for the first time, I watched fellow David Fincher movie Seven from 1995 for the first time as well. And unlike Fight Club, Seven is a movie that I can comfortably call a masterpiece. A movie that deserves to be called one of the greatest movies of the 90s and one of the greatest movies of all time. And I don't feel scared saying it. I feel confident and comfortable calling this movie a masterpiece. If only I could do the same thing with Fight Club. If only. And there you have it, folks. 5, technically 6 movies that a lot of people love that I don't like. I already know that people are probably gonna get mad at me for this video, but as I mentioned before, everything that's in this video is purely my opinion. It is purely the way that I look at these movies, and I cannot change that. I'm sorry. I really, truly am sorry, but I cannot look at these movies in any other way. That's just simply how I am when it comes to these movies. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see y'all next time. Adios.